Without any further ado, we now proceed towards the next standalone session of the day, titled Driven by AI. The speaker will discuss how artificial intelligence can shield users against different frauds. For this session, we have Narayan Devanathan, Chief Strategy and Communication Officer, Dentsu India. Please join me in welcoming our guests up on the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm lucky to have this post-lunch crowd over here. I hope you've had the right amount of roti and dessert, but less of rice, so you're not falling asleep while I'm talking. I'm hoping I can, if not engage you and interest you, at least entertain you for the next 15 minutes. I couldn't resist this pun to begin with. I'm from advertising. I work with a global communications company called Dentsu. So I couldn't resist starting with a pun, and I'm sure you've seen this pun elsewhere also, Sachin Tendulkar exclaiming about what is going on in this world, clearly being driven sometimes from different perspectives to despair by AI. But is it all gloom and doom? I was introduced as going to be talking about ways to use AI to actually combat fraud and to make this a digitally safer world. I'll get to that eventually. But I want to talk about the underlying factors which have brought us to this place, if you will. So you've heard at least half of this slate today, and you'll hear the rest of the slate. This is the speaker panel and the topics in this fantastic event today. And as you'll notice, a common thing over here is practically every perspective from a technocratic point of view is covered over here. Every technological, data, business point of view is probably going to be covered over here in minute detail, and there have been some fantastic experts who've come up and presented their perspectives. There's going to be even more of you who will be coming up and doing that. But as I was looking at this slate over here, I couldn't help observe that there's one particular word that is completely missing from every single description of the topics over here. And that word is people. So I want to try and talk to you from a people perspective, from a human perspective, of how is it that we've gotten to this place over here where we are compelled to bring this august gathering of so many experts to try and explore what we can do to combat fraud in a world that is driven by AI. And I go back even further than this picture, but some of you may recognize what this picture is of, this painting is of. This is around 1775. These are the founding fathers of the American Republic. They're sitting together and working on drafting the Constitution of the United States. And the legend goes that the first thing that they wrote down when they started to draft the Constitution was this statement: people cannot be trusted, especially with power. And I think that principle holds good even today. And power comes not just from political votes and electoral power, but it comes from various different sources, including technology, as we are seeing over here today. So remember this principle, right? People cannot be trusted, especially with power. Okay? And here we are, arming ourselves with a technology that is going to create enormous power, probably in the hands of a very few. One of the theories, conspiracy theories, doing the rounds last week when Sam Altman went out and then came back in, and an interim period of 5 days, and OpenAI was, open season for all kind of conspiracy theories, was that actually OpenAI was this close to creating GAI, or General Artificial Intelligence, which would pretty much be a replica of the human brain, able to replicate and create intelligence on its own. And the problem was that there were no safeguards to figure out how the GAI would go forward on its own. So if we are that close even to GAI, then what safeguards do we have? And what safeguards, especially against this principle, do we have that people cannot be trusted with power? Whether you trust what the board said or what Sam said, it's up to us. It's a matter of perspective. But it's clear that at least on one side, if not on both sides, there is a lack of trust. The second thing bit about this, I would ask you before. I've deliberately blacked out some words over here. But this is a sentence about a very revolutionary technology. Okay? And the words that are captured there say the relatively unrestricted circulation of information and revolutionary ideas transcended borders, captured the masses, and threatened the power of authorities. Any guesses what technology this is about? What I wish I had some gift to give you. The printing press is absolutely the right answer over here, right? This goes back to the 1400s, the 1500s. And we're talking about a time when you would probably not think about this. I mean, look at the internet, right? That's at least 600 years from where the printing press was. And yet it aptly describes both of these, as this gentleman has pointed out. If you look a little further, exactly what he said, right? It actually probably enabled the Renaissance. As this joke goes, the Swiss had thousands of years of peace, and what did they produce? The cuckoo clock. The Italians had mass murders and revolution all around the place, and they produced the Renaissance. Maybe this chaos that we are in the middle of is not a bad thing. Maybe it is going to produce something fantastic. Maybe we just need to be patient for half a century more before we realize what it is that we'll get. Another quiz question. I want you to tell me what's common to, well, these two, the VCR and the internet.
Spread, real that spread.
Okay, any other guesses? Data. Okay. Replication. I'm actually going to go back to what I spoke about first, that people cannot be trusted with power, because for the most part, we are driven by our baser instincts. And I'll fast forward to something that's from a couple of months back. You've all seen this instance of deepfake as well, right? So when the wrestlers' protest was going on, these two wrestlers were arrested on the bus. There was the original picture and there was a morphed picture, right? That was circulating. And the other thing that triggered, okay, I don't have that, but I was going to put the other picture that created the storm, which was Rashmika. Actually, the common thing is the misuse of power in all these instances, right? And such a perspective thing when I say misuse of power. Actually, what connects these two is the initial proliferation of both these technologies was exponentially spurred by pornography, right? Something that appealed to our baser instincts. We'll never acknowledge it publicly. You go to any Wikipedia page on either of these technologies, you'll never see it acknowledged. But I think we all in this room know, and there's probably enough scientific research that's been done sociologically to point out how much that spurred the spread of these technologies. And we owe a lot of thanks to what is actually not a socially kosher topic for actually the advances that we have in both of these technologies. And likewise with this, as we've seen with Katrina and with Rashmika and with Modi ji also, right? It is this misuse of power depending on which perspective you're seeing things from. So again, we keep coming back to that red thread of what it is that technology enables, but more importantly, what it is that people use the technology for. Because ultimately, this is a new acronym that I've coined over here. We're all familiar with GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. But let's talk about the language of computer engineering, right? If everything is about coding, if all AI is about coding, then actually there is an even more ancient code that drives what comes out in algorithms in artificial intelligence. That's the encoded algorithms, if you will, in our DNA. So code in, code out is actually what I see happening over here, that what we are encoded to do as human beings, whether it's driven by our baser instincts or our more noble instincts, is what is seen as output. There's this story about this jail in Massachusetts where hardened criminals were brought in year after year and incarcerated, sometimes in solitary confinement. And they never left the jail for the most part. But if for some reason they were let out for some good behavior, they actually didn't know how to fit back into normal society because they had never learned what it meant to fit in life outside of the jail, because the jail never brought them that kind of education. And so this particular jail had a warden who said, who had this very interesting perspective. He said, actually, it's so inefficient to build jails to just keep people inside, to keep bad people inside. Instead, if you looked at jails as the places where people can improve themselves, then they can get out sooner and they can make better lives and better societies outside. So back to code in, code out, right? So what is it that you're going to use as code or base code for artificial intelligence is what artificial intelligence will be available to you for as well. And so when you think back to where it is that we can go, I go back to this. In fact, just before the session started, Sanjay and I were just talking outside about one of the initiatives that I think Google was looking to do, which was to go to colleges and talk to people who are these kind of technologies. These are the future users of it. So at Dentsu, we have this research called Wakumon, which literally means the young. But the perspective on the young is that they see the future before the rest of us. We have created this present that is not exactly a gift to the next generation. But what is it that we can do that can enable the next generation to create something magical, positive out of it? And I'm lifting this picture from a school in Finland. Some of you may have heard of the initiative that the Finnish government has initiated, where all schools now have built into their curriculum, especially at this grade, right? So we're talking about primary school and middle school, not just high school and college, courses on misinformation, disinformation, bad information, right? So at an early age, they're able to spot what fake is when it comes to information, news, and I'm sure they'll build things around deep fakes also into the curriculum as we go forward. But you think about it, it's not just information, it's about arming that next generation with the code to figure out not just what is not right, but to also create what will be most useful. Because we've created all of the code to do whatever it can, but not necessarily with the guardrails to create what is needed. And so perhaps one of the best things we can do is to arm the next generation before they start creating with what is possible. And then that will ensure that CCO, or code in, code out, actually creates the most positive outcomes. So if I go back to the beginning, I don't think we have cause to be driven to despair yet by AI. I don't have a specific short-term fix to combat fraud using AI. I think there are much better, more knowledgeable and experienced technical experts sitting in this room over here. But if you have to think from the longer term, the best way to combat fraud is to bring up whole generations who don't want to commit fraud. Thank you.
Interesting topic. One day is less. There are three departments by training. I'm a professor by the genetics with the word of faith. GMO and that's the one technique and technology CRISPR-Cas9 where you can manipulate these all living beings at your will, which was not possible before, and then artificial. I call them that they are the three last made in the coffee of existence of humanity. And I challenge anybody can deny this. I don't know for your mess. But see this in the same context, what you have told very little. If I tell AI, I'm not an expert in this, I'm a biologist, biotechnologist. If I tell AI somehow that you go and control the army and attack America or Europe or some particular countries, what will happen? Similarly, in food, if you are reaching that everybody involves a very notorious Jewish mind, he said if you want to control nations, you control I. And if you want to control people, you control food. And that is being controlled code today is much more dangerous weapon than nuclear weapon, because nuclear weapon when used, you think that it's understanding. But yes, we are not. There are medicines, there are a lot of other things, disinformation. As the AI comes into effect, what do you think, what those type of videos is going to be? I don't say that is my perception, but I'm a scientist, so I think both directions. Thank you very much.
It probably requires more than a day's discussion to answer that. Yeah. No, I trust in the ultimate ability of the human instinct to trump the chaos. I mean, we think in our lifetimes, which is very small modules of time, if you will. But if you think about the printing press, it took a couple of 100 years before it got to its potential. The internet is still a baby. This is barely out of the womb right now. So we'll make mistakes, we'll stumble, we'll create a lot of chaos. But hopefully there's enough of us who are critical in a positive way like this to mold it in the right way. Yeah, so I believe we are driven by the negative more than the positive. So it takes a lot more effort to shape the good. Thank you.